Anyone who's watched me over the years knows that I'm obsessed with Hydrolyte. In my opinion, the best oral rehydration product on the market. I literally use it every day. My family uses it. When I had COVID, I'm telling you, Hydrolyte contributed to my recovery, kept me hydrated. Now, with things finally reopening back around the country, the potential exposure to the common cold is always around. And like always, Hydrolyte has got your back. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity, my new favorite, starts with their fast-absorbing electrolytes and adds a host of great ingredients. Plus, each single serving easy pour drink mix contains 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 300 milligrams of elderberry extract. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity comes in convenient, easy to pour sticks that rapidly dissolve in water, make a great tasting drink, has 75% less sugar than your typical sports drink. Uses all natural flavors, gluten-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free, non-GMO, and even vegan. Hydrolyte Plus Immunity is also now available in ready-to-drink bottles at the Walmart next to the pharmacy. Or as always, you can find it by visiting hydrolyte.com/Dr. Drew. Again, that is HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW. Be sure to use the code Dr. Drew 25 for a special discount.
Hey everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
And here we are, and today we are welcoming Dr. Ilisa Kaufman. Dr. Kaufman is a Psy.D. You can find her. Is this your Twitter or Instagram? The @OCD_help_now. Is that
Instagram?
Instagram. Is there a Twitter handle as well?
I do not have Twitter.
Wise, very wise.
Brilliant woman.
There is Dr. Kaufman's website, Compulsion Control. She has some expertise, obviously, in obsessive compulsive disorder. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about COVID. We've got a lot of things to talk about. And Dr. Kaufman and I met each other in Washington, D.C. at a really, just such an impressive meeting of an organization called the International OCD Federation, iocdf.org, if you're interested in looking at their stuff. I'll let you talk about. I was amazed what a wonderful organization that was.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. They, mostly it's good for the education. The public sometimes does not know that it could take up to, I believe, even up to 17 years for an OCD person to get correctly diagnosed and receive the treatment that they actually need.
And the other thing that not only was, I was impressed with two things jumped out at me. One was the professionalism and the expertise of some of the professionals that were there, which were just off the chain. But the other was all the patient resources and the patient support. And it was just unreal how many different kinds of support systems they had in place.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. Whenever they have to go virtual now for their conferences because of COVID.
Oh boy. I mean, there were thousands of people there. There was that room I spoke to looked like about 2,000 people. It's crazy how many people came to these conferences, and it was about as positive an event as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and I, by the way, I loved your keynote speech. It was very good.
It was an interesting thing. It has come up again and again, that topic of stigma, and I have called upon that. In fact, I'm giving a talk this Friday where everyone is very interested in stigma as it pertains to addictive diseases, but I'm telling you, nobody gets stigmatized more than serious mental illness, particularly OCD, right? Because sometimes there can be some peculiar behaviors and things, and people they recoil as opposed to leaning in and making contact with those people.
Yeah, it's very sad because the typical OCD person will eventually try to hide and deny what's happening to them for fear of embarrassment because the public does not understand what's happening to them.
One of the, this is just to bring people into this conversation if they don't feel it applies to them, one of the overlap syndrome is hoarding, and everyone's sort of interested in hoarding. How does that fit into the spectrum of OCD?
Well, so hoarding is an OC-related disorder. Basically, it involves compulsive behaviors. The person has trouble. A compulsive behavior people don't realize can be something like avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you avoid or you can't throw anything away, that counts as a compulsive behavior. So you could see some of the treatment involved. There's an overlap. Because basically what OCD treatment does is you want to reduce the amount of compulsive behavior a person is doing. So if you were going to treat hoarding, you could see you would want them to start throwing things away, cleaning out, showing people pictures of their house. Hoarders tend to want to hide in secret.
Mm-hmm.
So you resist a lot of those behaviors also.
And I know the TV shows and whatnot are well-meaning, but it doesn't fit my. I'm not treated hoarding much. It's usually
You're married to a hoarder.
No, not like we're talking about.
I think I'm just lazy. I know I have to throw it away, but I'm just too lazy to do it.
No comment. Anyway, that actually you're pretty good at purging. There's still stuff we purge.
Once I get started, but I just
that I regret having purged. To tell you the truth, but
like your speakers.
No, that was good. I'm thinking more of my textbooks from medical school. I think it would have been really interesting to have those. But be that as it may, it doesn't really fit with my understanding of tolerable doses of exposure that people go in and just clean the place out. That doesn't seem tolerable to a hoarder.
Most people gradually do a desensitization. They call it systemic desensitization. So most people, like I'll begin. I have my own program called RIP-R. It's my own therapy I created.
RIP-R, R-I-P-R?
Yeah, RIP-R.
RIP-R. Tell us about it.
RIP-R. I put in a component. Traditionally, you use like ERP, which is exposure response prevention. I modified ERP. I threw in a motivational component that could be used for addiction as well. I believe a person, much like in the addiction world, I believe before you just go in and start reducing compulsive behavior, you have to make sure the person is properly motivated.
Yeah, this is what I've been saying. This stuff that I know Susan was telling you about before the mic heated up, where all this bullshit is flying around about me on internet and in so-called legitimate publications, but clearly not. Oh yeah, here we go. But now I lost my train of thought. What was I saying about all that nonsense that's out there?
Motivation.
Oh yeah, that I'm being accused of wanting to criminalize, and I have no interest. We dismantled our state mental health system, and we sent the people that needed that state mental health services to the streets, the prisons, and the nursing homes, and they don't belong any of those places. And now in California, we don't no longer put them in the prisons. That's a good thing. So we shouldn't be criminalized, but we must motivate people to get proper care. We must create a continuum of care, or they will die. And that's my position. I mean, it's just simply the case. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I agree. It's basic human behavior. It makes sense. It's common sense. If you want someone to not do a compulsion, they have to have a reason, or it's just not going to happen. The problem is you could be putting people in a position where they actually do more compulsions, because if you expose them and they're not motivated, you could just be triggering them to do compulsions.
Interesting. So that's hoarding. Talk a little bit about phobias. That's also something that's very common. It's in the obsessive compulsive spectrum. I think just about everybody experiences some sort of phobic something at some time in their life.
Yeah. It's a huge problem. It's a big problem actually nowadays. I actually had 3 consultation phone calls today on coronaphobia, actually. So it meets criteria for a specific phobia, like we always coded it. But now the content is corona. People are afraid of. Why? Because they did all the behaviors, avoiding, and not that this isn't political, like not that we weren't supposed to do behaviors, but the problem is it gets people into a mindset. You create these habits of danger, and it's hard to undo. So they need, same thing with phobic people as with OCD and as with hoarding, they need to face what they fear.
Intolerable, and that's more in the ERP zone, right?
Yes, although my therapy, the difference is I created the I part of my therapy is I created mind manipulators, mind games to help people not do compulsions, but we play certain games inside of our head to resist the compulsion.
Which sort of fits the biology of OCD, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of how our heads work.
Right. And I struggled with severe OCD for years. So this is the exact combination. These are the exact games I use to help myself get into recovery. Did
you get to know Elizabeth Mattingale when you were there or do you guys know each other?
I don't know if she remembers me. I met her briefly. Well, I think there, and maybe Texas. I went to the Texas conference.
She's in Texas, yeah. And she was again. She reminds me of you a little bit in terms of your recovery, but she was. I mean, really, they thought they were going to have to hospitalize her indefinitely. She was totally destroyed by OCD symptoms, and now she's a high-level professional. So it shows you can really, no matter how bad it is, there's treatment available.
Absolutely, yes.
How does somebody know if they have, I think you wrote an article about this, coronaphobia?
I did. I wrote an article, and I'm writing another article on vaccination hesitation. So,
which is a relative of this, isn't it?
Yes. Like, they're all based, it's a lot of fears. Like, so the question is, why, how do people develop these fears?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, what I wrote in the article was, when you run from something,
Mm-hmm.
when you resist it, you create feelings of danger about what you're running from. And I also want to say, I'm not putting down the media, but I think the media contributes heavily to putting people in a state of feeling alarmed. You want people to be aware, but I think it's created a lot of alarm.
Absolutely.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, you don't have to put down the media. That's just simply a fact. And I've been very worried about that.
That's how they sell newspapers.
Well, they have a commercial sort of motivation in all of it, but I've been worried about that since February of last year, and I've been screaming about it, and it has played out, and here we are, everybody. Lots of really serious mental health consequences. It's funny, in my own head, although I'm prone to panic and phobias and all that good stuff, I have OCD features as well. I don't think about fear as connected to my OCD biology. It feels a little different. What is the connection there? Do we know what the biology is?
The question is the biology between your.
I guess I know for a fact. I'm just going down a little rabbit hole here. I know that anxiety and panic and OCD overlap to some degree. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's certain anxieties, as I've experienced it, there's certain anxiety disorders that are more on the OCD spectrum. Okay, and that's me. And yet I don't think of my OCD mechanisms as associated with fear. It's kind of weird. Do we know about that biology?
What they say about OCD is that, think the biology that they know, that I know of, is the scans of people when
Mm-hmm.
the OCD is like really prevalent and active. There's certain parts of the brain that are activated. So if you look at a scan, there's certain parts of the brain that are like lit up, so to speak. So yeah, you're activating. It's the parts of your brain like fight or flight, those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So you activate those. As far as like,
see, I have a feeling. The amygdala, people I think mischaracterize as a fear center. I think that's sort of a gross oversimplification. I think it sort of hits saliency as much as anything. And OCD is all about saliency. And so I'm imagining the amygdala is sort of off. I know it's a temporal mechanism to some extent. And I'm just wondering if there's also then some sort of secondary amygdaloid sort of input into the brainstem that's activating the sympathetic nervous system. There's got to be something like that.
I would think so, but I think it's doesn't it remind you of like in the caveman days, people wouldn't be running because they didn't have a date for their prom, but they would get those areas of the brain activated because the lion was chasing after them.
That's right.
But in modern day society, we're activating similar parts of our brain for things that are no longer life-threatening.
Right. Absolutely true. And again, I think that you're right. I think that's kind of the overlap, because that's where the OCD kicks in. We make a lot of a little, right? Isn't that sort of the syndrome? That's sort of what the syndrome is. And I was just thinking about people with, body dysmorphia was originally a facial thing. It was about the face, and when it was original characterization. And they have a bunch of fMRI. Actually, I think it was sort of SPECT scans on people with it, and it shows that they have trouble seeing a whole. Everything is tiny little parts. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like OCD, right? Do you treat body dysmorphia too?
Yes, because BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, is also an OC related disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically, I treat my therapy bars for any compulsive behavioral problem, gambling, drugs, BDD, because my interrupter strategies could be used for any of these compulsions.
Talk to me about these interrupter strategies.
Oh, the interrupters. So there's 10 of them. They're like my babies. So they're each, like, I'll give you an example of one of them. I won't go through all 10, but like we use, you know what I'm going to do? I'll use bad attitude. People like that one.
Bad attitude. Okay. I'm ready.
It's called bad attitude. So basically what a person does is, if like, let's say, okay, let's use hit and run OCD as an example. This is the kind of OCD where you're constantly checking if you hit someone, if you hit a pedestrian, you're looking in your mirror to see if people are still okay after you drive by them. So we want you to drive by somebody and not check on them, right?
Yep.
That's your mission. That's your goal, to behave like a non-OCD person.
Mm-hmm.
So in your head, when you tell someone it's not good enough, you can't just say to someone, now don't check on them, right? Because it doesn't work that way. It's a strong, strong urge. So when a person is properly motivated and you get in the car with them and you ask them not to check, so let's say they want to use bad attitude. They say in their head, you know, like, I know this doesn't sound good, but like, screw him. Everybody's on their own. What do I care? You know? It kind of, it's not like OCD people, obviously the problem is they care too much.
Yes.
They feel too much responsibility for human life and everything. So an OCD person needs this kind of mentality just so they could resist the urge to check, which is ruining their life and affecting their ability to function and drive. So yeah, I actually teach people how to say screw them.
So I know you're laughing about it. It's so funny. Do you have to? I'm curious about the therapist yourself as a regulator or a container of these phenomena. Let's call them the behaviors and the feelings associated with the behaviors. Do you have to be there in the car with them for them to, initially to be able to tolerate it?
No, and especially interestingly, because of Corona, I have been in cars with people, but it becomes a reassurance, because if I'm in the car,
mm-hmm.
they think, oh, you know, well, the therapist would never let me actually hit someone.
I see.
Or they'll try to ask me if they hit someone. So I become part of the compulsion. In RIP-R, actually, in my therapy, you own the all behaviors are your responsibility. If you do a compulsion, I don't mean to be cruel, but like, I'll sleep well at night. If you don't do a compulsion, I'll sleep well at night. It's your responsibility to not do the compulsion.
We have an interesting comment from Angry Bear. I've heard you mention fluvoxamine in the context of your COVID treatment. I took fluvoxamine for a long hauler stint. It works really, really well. I had no other neuropsychiatric anything other than I got better. This Angry Bear says, I was on fluvoxamine for my OCD, but had to quit because of brain fog and libido issues. Been able to recover from OCD just doing self-administered ERP. Self-administered ERP. Talk to me about that, Ilisa.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could, a self-administered ERP is basically a person just decides to give up the compulsion. So they will, on their own, without any support or help from a therapist, I guess, they will expose themselves to something that triggers them, and then they will fight the urge and resist the compulsion. People use books, and you know, they have workbooks and stuff. You could try self-administered ERP. I recommend, though, I recommend assistance to help with this. It's very difficult to break, and I don't think a person should have to do it on their own. Is it possible? Yes. Is it the most ideal? No.
I've not seen anybody with bad symptoms do it on their own. They do a lot of the stuff later, but you initially need that regulator. You need the other person there containing it with you.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't do it on my own. That was the problem. I used to wake up every morning saying, today's the day. Today's the day. I'm not going to do it today. No, today is the day. And it never stopped until I realized I really need some help with this.
Is it in your family?
No, but like so many compulsive behaviors are in my family. Compulsive smoking. We have a compulsive gambler. We have, oh God, who's in my family? Anxiety, general panic, addictions. Yeah, we have, but these things all kind of run together.
Except for that, no.
Did you already say how to stop vaccination phobia?
Let's talk about that. What do we do with the vaccination phobias?
So I have a couple questions I wanted to see if you, that I've been getting from people.
Okay.
What do you think is the public's main concerns regarding getting the vaccine?
Well, there's some people I think there are several different categories of it. There are the people that are committed against vaccines whose worldview depends on vaccines being bad. But that's not the predominant group out there. The predominant group out there probably breaks down into two groups. One who believes it's experimental or it's emergency use and therefore not approved, or it came on too quickly. There's something about the procedure with which the vaccine came. I guess it's three groups. It was too fast, therefore I can't trust it. There's the group that don't trust the medical system, period, and have reason for that. They've been mishandled at some time in the past. And then there's the group that, did we lose you?
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, that was my.
There we go. Oh, and there's finally the group that goes, why should I take this is back to the people that feel it was too quick, take an experimental vaccine for a condition that I have 1% fatality rate associated with. So I see it as sort of three categories.
Okay. And also, how much time do you think the vaccine needs to circulate before people become, we talked about desensitized, but how much time do you think people need before, like how much evidence do you think?
I think that probably breaks down into different groups as well. I think there's a group, I was probably in the hesitancy group very early, just kind of wanted to see how it rolled out. So there's a group that came on board that are reassured now. There's a group that want to see long-term. I don't know what long-term means to them. I'm imagining a year or two, I sort of think. And there's a group that will never be convinced.
Okay. That's what I thought too. Do you have any specific recommendations for the addictions community? Do you think the addictions community has their own separate concerns about the vaccine?
Not that I've seen, though they break down into the different camps too. It depends, you're talking about a recovering person or somebody using. Somebody using is only interested in using. They're not interested, if you came in and said you could keep using here if you got your vaccine, they'd be in right there. But recovering groups can get into little cliques and things. They can have funny ideas.
Okay. All right. I hadn't heard of it either. I just was wondering. So what would you say to the people, I've heard this one, what would you say about people that want to get one shot but not the second shot?
That I would say I understand all of it. You know what I mean? I would say I'm sympathetic. I understand. I don't like governments telling you what to do. But what I normally say is it's going to be a little more intense the second shot, but you really, you're already in. You want to get the full benefit of what you're doing, number one. And number two, it just doesn't make sense. It's not as though there's some added risk you're getting into with that second shot that really is of a relevant nature. So I don't know. I would just ask them what their fears were.
Okay. I get that a lot. I have clients that are like, I'm getting one, but only one.
Yeah. Well, so look at dumb me. So I knew I'd react to it. I've had COVID and it was bad, and I knew I'd have a big reaction to the vaccine. So I thought I only want one too also. So I will get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And I had a huge reaction to that, including spontaneous bruising and all the stuff you're supposed to look out for. So that reasoning doesn't necessarily bring you to a good place, It really doesn't. So no. One vaccine doesn't make full sense. It just you're really only getting part of the benefit, and probably whatever risk you imagine, you already accumulate that with one vaccine. And as you see, you do quite well with it.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell my patients you spoke to that.
Okay, good.
I'll mention that.
Yeah. But I've not found that rational discourse necessarily improves things. You know, we live in a time right now. This is the other thing I wanted to bring up with you. It feels like we're in a time of hysterics. Like histrionic personality has become the personality of the day. Like we've like as a populace, we've become histrionic in some way, and a lot of the fears and hysterics are sort of compulsive in nature. Do you see that, and what should we do about it?
Absolutely see it. I wouldn't know how to answer it because I feel the media has contributed to. I have strongly encouraged all of my clients to please limit or even discontinue all the news, because I feel that it has not only put people in a state of alarm, but it has kept them there for a prolonged period of time. This is dangerous for the human psychology, for the brain.
Yes, it is. And it's not, to be fair, it's not just the media, it's the governments in some states. Shelter in place. Go, don't talk to grandma. You'll kill her if you talk to grandma. I mean, that's the government doing that. Oh yes, here we go. I'm striking back again. But that whole phenomenon of the excess with which you're being warned by government to, I mean, shelter in place is something reserved for nuclear warfare, not a flu. And to your point, the impact on the human condition is going to be massive. I really worry about young people, particularly 8 to 15-year-old. I've said it many times. Do you?
I'm very worried. Actually, I was going to ask you, people now are coming to me for my children. My kid's pediatrician actually just mentioned to me, she said, I have a lot of people I'm sending for your program because a lot of parents chose not to. I mean, I chose to put my kids back in school in October just to try it because I had that option. It actually went very well. The schools are doing a fantastic job in at least my kids' schools. And you're
in Florida, to be fair.
I'm in Florida, yes. And so I had the option. But the pediatrician said to me, she has parents who have kept the kids literally inside the house, and they are falling apart, these kids. They have tremendous amounts of phobia and fear now. It's very sad.
You know, the other thing I would tell you, I was just thinking about another thing as it pertains to your vaccine group that doesn't want the second vaccine. There's a piece here that I want people to think about, which is that there is a collective responsibility in taking this vaccine, in that the real risk going forward is that this virus has so much opportunity to replicate that you will see massive mutations, and we'll have to go through this whole effing thing again. And the way to prevent that collectively together, okay, so maybe you don't like the risk of the vaccine for some reason. Maybe you can outweigh that with an understanding that we have some sort of collective obligation to try to reduce the replication of this thing so the mutations don't develop down the line.
Yeah, completely. I agree. I mean, I agree. People need to consider, but that leads into motivation, actually, is that, people do need a reason to take the vaccine, but I encourage people, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be the media. It doesn't have to be the government. It could just be search within yourself and think about what kind of a future you want for yourself and and you can make the decision for yourself.
Yeah. It sounds like motivation is really a significant area of your thinking these days, right? Is that new for you, or has it always been there? And let's get into that a little more.
Oh, motivation developed because when I struggled with starting and stopping and trying to get better from OCD a few times, I kept relapsing, so to speak. And it wasn't until I had something really meaningful and bad happen in August of 2010. And it shook me up so much that I finally had a reason. And it was the first time I was able to fully do what I had to do with my compulsive behaviors and control them. And eventually I got better.
It brings up a whole other topic, which is moments of change, right? There's changing directions and accessing treatment and participating in treatment. And either that happens because typically in my world, that happens with near loss of life, loss of freedom, loss of children. Your children taken away from you. Then people become motivated. So in my world, I know that's somebody I can work with. But there are other ways to bring people to a motivated state. Talk about that a little bit.
I'm glad you asked that, Dr. Drew. I have in my therapy, the first part of it is called rock bottom. That's the R in RIP. And we actually have, if a person is not motivated when they start treatment, we have 5 drive builders that we use to help people. And they are based upon people can, like, as an example, people could set an embarrassment date. They set a date where, like, if they don't reach their goal, they actually plan something. So like it could be a trip somewhere, but they have to buy the plane ticket. They have to do what they have to do. So they have a date they have to prepare for. Mm-hmm. We have different ways. Loss, like, we don't make people do anything. A person chooses to pick something that they're going to lose or give up if they don't control the compulsions. So we help teach people like ways where you could motivate yourself. If what happened to me was something out of my control, the environment did something. So I hit sort of rock bottom, not because I did it, but because the world did it to me. Mm-hmm. But I think what people have to understand with severe OCD, with addictions, severe addictions, either you're going to change it or you will at some point hit a wall.
Right.
Something will happen.
Right. These are progressive. Is OCD considered progressive also?
I would think it is.
Yeah, most serious mental illness has a progressivity to it. Addiction categorically is progressive. Well, you gave me 2 of the 5 drive builders. What are the other 3?
Oh God, you can't give away all my secrets.
All right. Read the book. Read the book. Go to the website. Make an appointment. All that stuff. But I was thinking a lot about that lately because I was talking about the homeless situation, and I was saying we shouldn't incarcerate these people. We should motivate them. You have to have a stick and a carrot to motivate them into treatment. You have to have the services and provide the treatment. But what those motivators are needs to be formalized.
Correct. Yeah. I think. Well, this is part of, to your point, of the person who wrote in about doing ERP self-guided. This is part of why I think it's important that you get someone to help you on this journey, because sometimes you can't motivate yourself, or sometimes you can't break something yourself. Like a lot of times somebody needs that like guidance to get there. It's funny we're talking today. I spoke to a woman this morning. She's actually from a business school. I can't remember the name of her book, but it's about change. And she was looking at it, from an objective sort of behavioral perspective. And a lot of these things you're saying had real relevance to what she was talking about as well, that you needed to have these goals, you needed to have sort of time contingent. And she was able to show that birth dates, beginning of the week, beginning of the month, there are certain times that people are more motivated. You can use these things. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree. And for OCD people, hoarders, BDD, talk therapy is not the way to go. Once again, like you just do not want to do it for these, for other conditions. Sure. It's great. Not for OCD specifically. You want some sort of an action. If it's ERP, people in Florida are welcome to call me for my program. But you definitely want something action. And I would say look for someone who's trained in the ERP also. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You have to have somebody who has a lot of experience with this. But insight-oriented psychotherapy, no bueno. not useful.
I say.
But however, the other thing she and I talked about, this woman that was talking about change, was that having support, whether it's peer or professional support, was a key component of change. And I was telling her, I said, I always think of a fighter in the ring. You need a coach and a water guy, and you need people in the ring. They aren't necessarily other fighters, but they understand what it is you're contending with. You can actually, she was saying that consulting with other fighters didn't really help. What helped was people in your corner who had your best interest, who were coaching you and scaffolding things for you.
This is always the case. That's why even in addictions, people came up with the idea of you have meetings to go to, you have a sponsor, I don't think anybody really, I'm not saying it's impossible to do it alone, but why would you even want to? Like, get yourself a good team that you trust, a really good professional that you count on.
Well, but people, as you said, people hide these things, number one, so they're ashamed to kind of talk about it. And number two, people feel like they want to do it on their own, or they should be able to do it on their own, or they don't want to spend the money, or whatever it might be. But it turns out, for any change, and especially for change where there's, considerable biology working against you, it's critical. It's critical.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes, by the way, spending the money can be used as a motivator. Also, you're putting money into it now. It's an investment. It actually, statistically, it makes it more likely that change will happen.
People are asking about medication online here. I have not seen medication is sort of hit and miss. I mean, Luvox, the fluvoxamine, was a medicine designed for it. It kind of lost favor. It was not a good antidepressant. Turned out it wasn't very good for OCD also otherwise as well. I know they'll use high-dose Prozac sometimes for things, particularly things like trichotillomania. You can talk about that in a second, which is the chronic hair pulling. And you have to take a lot. And at those doses, you're getting side effects. So I wouldn't look forward to that. And again, it's another, anafranil is another one you mentioned, ZZ Fly. I haven't seen an anafranil for that long in a long time, so I'm not sure if psychiatrists are using that anymore. But it can be helpful, but it's often not.
I have a lot of clients on, they do use anafranil. I have some clients on it now. Okay, so I'm a behaviorist, so we'll start from there. Yes, and what you said is true. They need incredibly high doses to actually get to OCD. At that point, my clients usually become very zombie-like, very tired. I had one guy fall asleep at his steering wheel, literally. I recommend, now I'm only speaking about OCD alone. I'm not talking about comorbid depression or bipolar or anything else. If you're talking about just OCD on its own, I say just behavioral.
Right. I think it's important to point out that, again, OCD can be part of psychotic disorders, schizophrenia, can be part of manic depressive disorders, can be part of depressive disorders. It can be a part of lots of different things. We're talking about just OCD per se. Another interesting thing people are asking about is the difference between OCD as a Axis 1 disorder and OCD personality disorder, so-called.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're actually completely different.
Talk about
totally different.
Talk about it.
I actually think the DSM should change it. It's very misleading. OCPD is a personality type. It's people that they're pretty much their whole lives are very rigid. Everything has to be perfect. It's not necessarily an OCPD, like with every personality disorder, the people around them are more annoyed and afflicted by the behaviors.
Right.
It's not so much the person. OCD, the disorder, the person is tortured.
Right.
Like the actual sufferer is can't function.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, does the personality disorder OC develop as much dysfunctionality?
Yeah, well, because personality disorders have a problem with functionality with their social relationships and their occupational
really more the relational relationships generally get disrupted. Yeah. So
but people with personality disorders, it's more synchronous to themselves. It's not so much dysynchrony, so they don't feel as much impact.
Right.
If you have OCD, the Axis 1, you won't be able to function, and you will feel it, and you will feel tortured by it.
And somebody's asking a question that I think is interesting, is that the phobias around coronavirus and the vaccines are, how do you handle this? Because it could kill you, something that could kill you. And I don't think people appreciate that I'm going to be destroyed is part of the OCD fantasy typically, isn't it? Or my family's going to be destroyed, or somebody's going to be destroyed if I don't engage in my behaviors.
Yeah. So with OCD, the person knows that it's irrational. That's why the OCD people are not crazy. It's the opposite of crazy. They know it's irrational, but at the same time, it's that doubt that they can't handle because it seems like it could potentially happen. And at some point, because you did so many compulsions, you can't take the risk anymore. You can't accept the little bit of unknown that this may or may not happen. And you stop yourself from actually showing yourself how strong you truly are. Somebody once said about OCD, an OCD person overestimates danger and underestimates their ability to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very well worded. OCD people don't give themselves a chance to see how strong they are, that they can handle it.
I'm sighing because I think about my own symptoms around these areas. Because you're aware that it's so irrational, it's hard to frame it that way. You know what I mean?
It's hard. Well, that's why OCD people, to your point before, that's why they cover up a lot of what's happening.
Yeah.
Because they know it's irrational.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm smiling to myself because I've had my own exposure therapy recently, in that I used to have a fantasy when I was a kid, particularly like an adolescent. I would fear being accused of something I didn't do. Like I had these recurrent dreams of being in a courtroom and being accused of something I didn't do. Some sort of free-floating guilt or something. I'm getting accused of shit all the time now that had nothing to do with me, and I'm getting really used to it. It's amazing what you can get used to. You know what I'm saying? It's my own ERP.
You're desensitized now.
Yes, I'm completely desensitized. It's something Mr. Corolla has suggested I become a long time ago, and it's taken actually experience to become so. Susan's laughing at me.
He took fluvoxamine too. I think that helped him.
For 2 weeks. I mean, that's not gonna do much to the overall symptomatology. Okay, let's see.
He's got OCD and I have ADD. We're a perfect couple.
A perfect match. Anthony Brown has something similar. Isn't that interesting? PTSD. How does all right, somebody's asking how PTSD and OCD overlap.
I mean, that's a great question. I'm going to actually throw out there, I have a great article on Psychology Today called Trauma and OCD. I wrote all about that. And yes, PTSD can manifest itself. It's possible in OCD, in the sense that I wrote a few examples in the article, but if you had something traumatic happen, you could have an OCD that has nothing to do with the trauma, but at the core of it, you're just trying to prevent going through the feelings of trauma again.
Right. It's your brain trying to manage the trauma. Here's a really interesting question. I have not read the entire question yet, but this kind of thing interests me a great deal. This is Mr. Parkle. I use my OCD to my advantage, he says, which I think is a really interesting thing. So instead of getting rid of that side of me, I focus it on doing good things that I know will be rewarding. And if I don't do something, I focus on, so I have to focus on myself. So I think the not question, but the sort of phenomenon he's raising is that OCD can have serious assets associated with it. It's not a purely negative symptomatology. It can really, when it comes to studying or learning something or having a set of tasks to do, OCD can be very useful.
I'm glad whoever asked that question, I'm really glad they brought that up.
Yeah.
OCD is only a problem when your functioning is impaired.
Right.
When you can't do your job, when you're not free.
Or to be fair with OCD, I've noticed that's because they hide it so well. It's much like an eating disorder. When the distress is enough. You know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't get to the functionality. Sometimes the distress is so profound that that's enough too.
Right. But the last phase in my therapy, actually, if you notice the RIP R, it's called replacement. There's a reason for it. When a person has controlled their compulsions and reduced them to a non-OCD person's that's what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. We then go into replacement phase. It's the last part of the therapy. We use all of your compulsive energy and all those natural tendencies so that you could make yourself money, do something good for the world, gain success. Of course, yeah. If you put your compulsive energies, if you could train yourself to do it in the right direction, I mean, OCD people could take over the world.
Right, right. That's exactly right. I mean, a lot of the really successful people are hypomanic and OCD, right? I think I have a feeling Elon Musk probably fits that sort of category, and you wouldn't mess with that.
Yeah.
Let's. I'm gonna let you set your camera up there. Is somebody moving it, or?
Sorry.
Your dog?
I had to put the I had to put the charger on it because it was going to die.
Oh yeah, of course.
And now I have to figure out how to
how to balance it with the charger on. We'll give you a second.
Yeah.
Let's see. A psychiatrist I work with said medical people tend to be a little OCD because it makes a careful person. Yes, that's right. My OCD stuff, I put Crepes for Suzette to huge use when I was in training. It made me check and double check and triple check things, and that was an important thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. I was in for a few.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to get the camera back now.
Right.
There.
There you are. So just to revisit and make sure everyone's getting it, if you don't mind, can you go through what the RIP-R stands for? Each one of them? Yeah.
Sure. Rock bottom. That's for motivation. Interruption. That is the mind games and the manipulators we use. Practice, which by the way should be a part of any behavioral therapist plan. You have to practice.
Maintenance.
And then
maintain.
Correct. Practice every day. You practice with your therapist all the time. And then you go right into replacement. So that's the fun part.
And is that significantly different from how most people approach it? Most therapists?
Well, first of all, talk therapists, I can't really speak to what they do. I've heard worse.
I wouldn't even go there. I mean, in terms of ERP, they were the ERP types therapy.
Well, I did ERP for years, so I have a lot of respect for ERP. I would never put ERP down. ERP, I have seen great things come from it. The problem is if the person's not motivated, this is why I did my therapy. I found that if my patients were not motivated and they didn't have the reason and everything, I was just triggering them. And it happened to me. I was getting triggered. I was actually doing more compulsions on my therapy sessions and I was paying for it. So that's why I like my therapy. That's why I did it. That's why I put my therapy out there, because I felt like it took all the best parts of ERP. It's the same concept. You have to resist compulsions, but I've made this more clear and more, this way a person doesn't at least get triggered. Sorry, I don't know where my camera went.
That's right.
Oh, there.
That was me. Sorry.
Around.
Now, I have a couple other topics to kind of get into here. People are kind of swirling around on my my stream here, my chat stream. One is perfectionism. How do you know when your perfectionism is adaptive and when it's becoming part of the OCD spectrum problem?
Functionality. It's all about functionality. Can you continue your social relationships? Are you having difficulties in them? Are your loved ones, have they had enough of you and they can't take you anymore? Occupation, can you get all your work done? Are you functioning to the best of your ability? I would look at functionality as your answer to that.
I kind of feel though like perfectionism can be a more pernicious symptom. You know what I mean? It kind of operates subtly and can make people overwhelmed and harried and asking too much of themselves. I'm wondering, because perfectionism is a problem before you start dysfunctionality, right? Is there anything that we can kind of tell people as we just here on our stream what to do if they feel like their perfectionism is excessive?
It's all in the behaviors, if you ask me. So if you want to try to do this on your own and you don't feel like you're subclinical OCD, you're not really OCD, but you want to try to work on yourself a little bit, go for your behaviors. Like if you feel like you want to check something and recheck it again so it's perfect, see if you could resist doing that. See if you could take the chance that it's not perfect. If you could do it on your own, great.
Yeah, exactly. I think raising awareness that perfectionism has utility, it's good to a point, but it can spill over into trouble and making people feel sort of overwhelmed. And my perfectionism presented as inability to allocate responsibilities to other people. That's how it manifested for me. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, people have trouble with that, but the answer would be you want to target the behavior, what you're doing that's too much or what you feel is getting in the way, and then you reduce that behavior. I mean, that's ultimately how you that's the only way you can control obsessions and intrusive thoughts.
Well, here's somebody who's asking something very specific. I think it's a good one. How does one train his or her brain not to constantly think that his or her children will die if you're not with them, which is a common preoccupation, or they'll get stolen?
You have to ask yourself, what behaviors are you doing? So if you think that, which is a horrible intrusive thought and it's common, so are you afraid to ever leave your children? Do you not walk away from them? Do you not let them out of your sight for a second? If you're doing all that, then the thoughts are going to get more and more real and seem more legitimate. That's why you have to control those behaviors and take more chances. Eventually, I promise you, your thoughts will get less.
It is important for your children that you let them fail and fall and do and have some autonomy on their own. So you have to, in small doses, start moving away, telling yourself humans have done this throughout history, and whatever it is you need to do, or be brutal like Ilisa and just say they'll be fine on their own.
Oh, the badass attitude.
Badass, yeah, the badass stuff. But
every man for himself.
It's interesting. I also had fear of flying for a little while and got over it through exposure. Now I have zero symptoms when flying, and I always feel like fear of flying is a very exemplary example of both a phobia and OCD type symptoms, because it comes on out of nowhere, and then it goes away very quickly if you allow for the exposure.
I agree. I actually had that too, Dr. Drew. I did not like planes, more for claustrophobia reasons. But yes, that's how you work on it. You keep putting yourself on the airplane and you test these things out.
I had a strange thought that maybe this woman who's asking about moving away from her children might appreciate. Is I learned that I could fly without anxiety. And you will learn that you can be away from your children without anxiety. In other words, your thoughts may not be that different. You may still have concerns that your children or whatever because you're away, but you can do it and not be anxious and return, and your children are fine either way.
Yes, and for that lady who's asking the question, I would say, like, if she was a RIP-R client, the fact that her children might actually be affected by this psychologically.
Yeah, not well, that's right.
We would use that as part of her rock bottom, part of her motivation. We would use that as her reason when she has to, like, because it's going to be very difficult when you start reducing those behaviors. It's going to be very, very difficult and uncomfortable. So we would give you that as your reason, your motivation to hold on to.
Chris B says, every time I see a psychologist, seem like common sense advice. Chris B, maybe you're not getting the right kind of treatment. It should either, in my opinion, it should be highly behavioral like ERP, or it should be them certainly not giving you advice. It should be you coming to your own conclusions and ideas, and them helping you shape and modulate that or tolerate your thoughts in a intersubjective context. So whenever somebody say they're getting advice from a psychologist, I think you kind of turn and run, right?
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah,
I've seen.
I'm not a big fan. So perfectionism is one common feature. Talk a little bit about scrupulosity and how we know where it's a problem and where it's not. It's a hard one.
Yeah, of course, it's very difficult.
Explain to people what that is.
Scrupulosity, it involves it's more like religious kind of compulsions and behaviors. So these people with scrupulosity have a tendency to be really obsessed with death, with mortality, with doing the right thing, with what's the word I'm looking for, with ethical kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Morals, that's the word. So yeah, it's difficult. But with like with every other kind of OCD, you find out how your typical non-OCD person would practice their religion, and then the client has to commit to doing no more, no less practices than that,
which is hard for them, but it becomes a weird topic to intrude upon therapeutically, right? There's all kinds of, it's hard.
I mean, it's not weird for me anymore because I've done it for a long time, but yes. Yeah, because I guess some therapists don't want to disrespect anybody's religion or value system. But, when you look at it as OCD, it has nothing to do with their religion anymore. It's just
Well, that's the problem, is that everyone, there's lots of, it's almost like having exercise bulimia. There's lots of people going, good job. There's trainers there saying you're doing it great. Much like in the religious community, there are people rewarding them and encouraging them, and it looks like all the right things, and yet it has fallen into psychopathology.
Yes. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. I'm not sure I'd want to tread. That's some area that I've not really treaded in my work. I've seen it. I've looked at it. It's easy when it's psychotic stuff, right? I mean, when it's on the sort of psychotic spectrum, it's very easy. But when it's scrupulosity, it gets a little blurrier, where you have to leave it up to the patient, right?
It's extremely difficult, Dr. Drew. But all of the OCD is, because remember, this is not like drugs. This is not like heroin where you could just give it up.
Exactly.
You have to find a way to live your life. My God, of course I wash my hands. But I had to find a way to not overwash and overdo it. Dr. Drew, I'm going to have to log off in a second.
Okay.
Because I have a client coming in.
It's quite all right. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I was just about to wrap it up anyway. I got through all the things I wanted to get to. It's good to see you again. I said we saw each other at the IOCDF meeting, which if you have phobias, problematic behaviors, compulsions, intrusive thoughts, if you're dreading it or you're affecting your functioning, the website they should go to, Dr. Kaufman, for you?
www.compulsioncontrol.com.
Compulsioncontrol.com. If you want more information, iocdf.org. They're great. Lots of patient resources there. And thank you for coming by. It's good to see you again. It's an interesting topic, and one that's kind of it's so common and yet not ever talked about much explicitly. It's not one of the sexy topics today, and yet it's an important one.
I totally agree. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on your show. Thank you so much.
All right. Good luck with your client. See you.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Susan, do you have any questions from what we talked about here? I can struggle with trying to answer.
I do not have OCD. I mean, I did before I had triplets.
You did?
Yeah. I used to have this thing about organizing and cleaning, but also every year I had to do a Christmas card. It was like I had to do it, and I would drive myself insane.
I don't think that's OCD.
It was, but I was I always trying to be perfect, and
the perfectionism.
And then I had triplets, and then after I did the Christmas card for about 3 or 5 years, and then year 6, it sat in a pile because I had a nervous breakdown, and then I started to realize that I wasn't as meticulous as I was before. I don't think it was necessarily OCD, but I always called it OCD because before kids, you just sort of have to have everything a certain way.
Well, I think your mom pounded on you about some of the perfectionism
cleaning
and stuff.
Cooking, and I had to be a perfect wife, whatever.
You blew all that apart.
Yeah,
You're
forget
fine
that now.
It's not an issue.
Now I'm going online to order food right now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Maxie,
but I did beat myself up a lot. If
psychology has helped a lot of people. I started to tell you, it measurably affects people. Now, what you do and when, and the quality of the therapist, and all those things really figure into things very prominently. That's for sure. No, Jason, I am not perpetually annoyed by my wife. We are having fun here.
I'm sorry, I'm annoying to you.
Not to me.
No, I mean to who was it?
No, he's saying that he thought I was annoyed by you. Not he's annoyed by you. No, that's you.
He makes funny faces when I talk.
Because you say some funny things.
This is very clinical and therapeutical, and some people really, really eat this up. They love it.
How did we come to Dr. Kaufman? How did that happen?
You sent me an email yesterday and said you said you were on Instagram Live and you told her to call me.
Oh, that's right. That is true. I did.
So you got anybody out there who pitches themselves on Instagram Live can sometimes get to be on the show.
Interesting. So that's how that happened. I didn't recognize her as the same person, but
So I tried to interview Mark Horvath.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
Well, I sent a tweet out and I said maybe you should come on the show, and then he recommended that you talk to another addictionologist.
Addictionologist?
Yeah, and I was like, no, we want to have
who?
and then he just went off on you for another hour because he retweeted
So who is the other?
Catherine Barger's
whatever
response. And yeah, it's like,
what is the other addictionologist
we
name?
really upset him. He was in tears. And then one lady said, "Enough already with the Dr. Drew.
Yeah.
Can we not talk about this anymore?" So anyways, this was my Susan Pinsky strikes back today.
Okay.
And Anthony Brown reached out because he said that we had homeless haters on our show.
Did Anthony reach out to Mark?
Yes, he did.
Anthony on the stream here? How'd that go?
And he toned me down. I was.
Oh, he reached out to you, but did he reach out to this guy?
No, he tweeted. He tweeted back to him. He responded, and yeah. But here's the thing. I hear the guy or whatever, but they got what they wanted. Stop beating a dead horse, you know?
So who was the addiction? I'm going to ask this one more time, and you're going to answer. Ready? Who was the addictionologist he recommended?
His name is...
Is it Gabor Mate?
No.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I love him.
He had kind of
He and I have talked many times. We see eye to eye. Absolutely.
Wait,
He's
let
a
me
Canadian.
double check. I could be wrong. I have to look it up on
No,
Twitter.
I'd love to talk to him. Love to talk to him.
No, I mean, I wanted to have this guy on. If he was a homeless person and he hates you not, and he thinks that you know, Ben Carson's an asshole. He thinks that Marbut's an asshole. He thinks that he didn't think that, but there were other ones. There were other you know, homeless haters on our show. And I was like, I produce the show, and if you can point them out, I'll take those shows down. I don't know what that means. So
Yeah.
because Marbut promotes jail-inspired shelters along with reward and punishment models. Carson is a joke. They both share lies and false information. Yeah, that's why they're appointed officers for the government. That's their job. Just Gabe Gabor, is that who he was? Dr. Gabor?
Gabor Mate, yes.
Yeah, he said have him on the show.
Mate
He's an
Gabor,
actual
yeah, I'd love to have him.
addiction.
I have his contact information. I'll send it to you.
All right, call him. Tell him that Mark Horvath sent you. But you know, I'm really like, okay, I get that they don't want you on the board, whatever. Like, but slinging mud at our guest and our show and our lives, like, you're donating your time to help homeless people the best way you can. And Catherine Barger thought it was a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then when she took you off the nomination, everybody jumped on the Catherine Barger killed Catherine Barger train.
Nice.
So you know, now she's taking all the heat for you.
I don't seem to have that. I don't seem to have his number anymore. So let me see if I have his email. Maybe.
You'll find it.
No.
Let's do it later. This is great radio, Drew.
I have his email.
All right, good. I'm so glad. Well, you can send it to me. I'll send Michelle after him. And
yeah.
Listen. I don't care. I mean, I do care because I don't like people trashing you for reasons. You know, obviously, there's a better group of people out there that can handle the homeless situation that want to make change, and
they're clearly not.
Yeah, well, let's see what you can do.
Some issues,
and I would like to continue the conversation because I guess maybe we can use your voice to get more information out there and help whatever it is that we can do to help. But you know, I don't really think there's such a thing as homeless haters. Okay, like. Because you want drug addicts to have to go to jail to clean up their act, maybe.
That's not what I want.
That doesn't mean you're. Well, they said you were.
No,
so.
I'm not. That's a categorical lie.
I know everything's a lie, honey. They had a whole list of reasons why you're not.
Yeah, I called the LA Times back and tried to set some of that straight.
Oh, Drew.
I know. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, why? Oh, I'm gonna kill you. Why did you do that?
Just to see, just experiment.
No.
Because
okay, I can't help you anymore.
All right.
I mean, listen, there's no response to this. The LA Times are the ones that made this all come about. They're bringing up, you know, you're a COVID denier. You got COVID and you're an asshole. You know, people died on celebrity. I mean, it's like all this weird press comes out that even the LA Times has to dig up and talk about. It's like they have nothing better to do. And it's not, I don't know. I just stopped talking to the LA Times. I thought we had a deal.
Anthony Brown wants to switch it. He says, I'm not a homeless hater. I hate being homeless.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I just hope the woman that wrote that article can sleep at night when she thinks about all those people dying on the street.
I just said, why didn't you check my professional credentials? Why didn't you actually look at what do you not think about? I check with the state. I go, that's not where you get professional credentials. That's not where you find that.
Okay.
But anyway, everybody, please.
I know.
Please end your LA Times subscriptions if you have one. That's the most important thing.
I know. Get rid of the LA Times, everyone. Save a dime. You can find it. You can find the LA Times article for free.
Richard wants to know what's my position on drug illegality. I actually would favor legalization of all drugs. I don't care, as long as we dealt with the consequences. The problem is we just legalize everything. Portugal is dealing with the consequences, and even they have a serious problem. British Columbia, highest overdose rate in the world. They're trying to deal with the consequences. I don't have an opinion about legality. I really don't. It's helpful when things are illegal because then we can create consequence for people and motivate them into care. I've said that before, but I don't care. I just think, but there's got to be some very active sort of interventions on the addiction that inevitably come. And so if you're not doing that, you're doing something terribly irresponsible. So that's my feeling for who asked me that. No, I can't find him. It's Richard Kepler. Richard, do you have any comment about that? Terry Kaufman got depressed reading our Twitter feed.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
Anthony
gave me
wants
anxiety.
to do meth and grass with us. So,
but when you're dealing with somebody in Twitter that's got emotional or mental health problems, and you just can't stop. They've got you. It's just they're projecting their shit on you. So it's like that's how I get so spun out of control. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just like I want to ask them why. Come on the show, talk to Drew. Give us your opinion.
Well, this guy, as I figured, is a coward, and because what happens is
he gave us another addictionologist.
I know Gabor really well, and so I just sent you his email.
That's not going to make this guy happy.
Well, we'll do that, and then we'll come after him again. But here's the deal: what happens is if it turns out that I'm not what he said he is, it exposes him to shame and guilt, and so these people are cowardly in terms of coming forward and actually looking at what they've done. Look at what you've done. Look at it. You've hurt people a lot. It's cowardly not to come forward and talk to people that want to talk to you. It really is.
Well,
I've addressed this now with a number of people that say horrible things online. Let's have a conversation. Let's get a rapport going.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that.
Well,
I have no problem with it. No contact, and it's disgusting and cowardly, and that's what we're into these days. There you go. Let's see. Talk about people.
This is another edition of.
There it is. Ba, 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 ba.
We need some music, huh?
Yeah,
I think there's some music, but I don't want to pay for the rights.
It'd be interesting to see what that was. Okay. Rational Revolution, Joe. You're absolutely right about that. Yes, Joe. Okay. So let's kind of wrap things up. I've got to be striking back right now. So let me continue striking back and just saying, look, everybody.
I'm going to write Susan Pinsky
I have said forever that the solution to these weird discriminatory silos that people get into is contact. That's it. Relationships. Make contact. Be two human beings. Be two professionals. Be collegial. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm absolutely not what you imagine. You're saying nothing but lies about my position, who I am. Gabor Mate and I have communicated many times over the years, and we are aligned. We are aligned. We don't have disagreements. We are aligned. And so for you to recommend one of my peers for me to talk to, fine. I'd love to talk to him. It's been a while since I've spoken to him. It'd be great.
So take that at Hardly Normal on Twitter.
So anyway.
Now I know he isn't normal. So I'm sorry. It just hurts me to see you attacked.
It's been going on for a long time.
I know. I put up with this for like half of my life.
Both you and Jordan have been in the middle of it lately.
The last LA Times situation we had, you had to leave Las Encinas. And I will never forget that. And I keep telling you, do not talk to these guys because they are going to try to take you down. That's their job. And also they sell more papers when you respond. And I don't want you to even help them. They don't deserve it. God.
Okay.
But Drew, I love you. I'm glad that you do what you want. You don't always listen to me because you can do whatever you want.
Well, it turned out you telling me not to talk to them yesterday was a grave error. Grave error.
Why?
Because you haven't read the article they wrote yesterday.
And I saw it.
No, the new one. Maybe this morning, right?
No, I saw it.
The one where I'm called anti-immigrant?
No, the same one.
No, this was beyond. This was beyond. And so, and she's saying, well, you didn't respond to me. I would have happily asked you these questions.
Yeah, but see that.
So there you go.
You know what? That's a douche move.
It is a douche move, but it was a grave error. As we know, you have to go in there and fight.
They go low, we stay high.
You have to go in there and address the stuff. You don't, it doesn't go well, as we've known many, many times.
No,
and so
you don't.
even though they twist it and turn it and everything else, you still have to go at it. Ducking is never the right thing to do, as you know.
No, Catherine said everything perfectly. You didn't need to respond.
No, it didn't. It didn't have an effect. It made things worse. So we'll see. We'll see. In any event, whatever, we'll get through it.
You know, I don't care if you know better. You know what your new direction is, and you know where it's going. I will support you 100%.
Chef Ava B, what is it Jordan Peterson's doing to defend himself? I haven't seen him lately defending himself. I know we've had his daughter on the show, and she's defending him. But they had the same thing. They did a long interview with the London Times about his medical problems, and they completely turned it around on him and made it sound terrible. And yet the whole thing was a recording. It was recorded, and they put the whole thing up on YouTube, rather on Instagram. And still, the London Times, they were disgusting in the way they presented what you can go listen to the entirety. I mean, they gave a very clear and honest review. I know them and I know what they've been through. And both Michaela and Dr. Peterson gave an exact rendition of what had happened in the last year to the poor guy. And they turned that into a problem, which is not inhuman, disgusting behavior. And I guess I'm hearing there's going to be a 230. What? Maybe you guys know a little bit about this. That there's going to be some liability coming for what people say on the internet and the press, and that people may have recourse going forward. So it will be interesting to see how they.
Are we going to be busy?
Yeah, I'm going to give Douglas an entire career.
Good thing we didn't wash the internet like all the other celebrities do. I didn't want to pay $15,000.
Oh, it would have been more than that. Yeah. Happy 420, Yo Soy Picasso. I'm seeing what you guys are saying here. Yeah, libel should be a thing, TS. And I think they're sort of thinking about some laws that will make it a thing again. They're calling you anti-immigrant, possibly because you and many of us wanted serious funds directed to our homeless, helping people before they're taking in tens of thousands more poor people. No, it wasn't at all clear what they were talking about. I think I was talking about when I was a resident medical student, I used to treat El Salvadorians who were running away from the El Salvadorian Civil War at the time. It was terrible. And a lot of them had severe ascaris lumbicoides and just
that sounds bad.
And cystic
when you
sarcosis,
said,
which are parasites. And I said I took care of people who are immigrants, not immigrants. They were refugees with parasites. Lots of that.
You used to talk to Lauren Savon about how a lot of immigrants came in and they were able to find housing.
Yeah.
But the homeless can't find housing. So how can these people come to the United States and find a place to live?
Yes,
and
what I was saying was
I think there's something about that. I think that's probably.
Well, let me repeat what I used to say, what Lauren and I used to say, which was, we gotta have Lauren on this stream, by the way. I would say that there was, whatever the number was for that year, 300,000 immigrants, undocumented immigrants coming in. All of them found a place to stay. All of them. Well, it's not even a strike back. It was just an observation. I think Leanne made the observation. It was Leanne tweeting, actually. Let's get Leanne in here. And she said that there's 300,000 people coming that year, and they all found a place to stay. They're not on the streets. Doesn't that suggest that it's possible when you come here without money, without a job, without identification, and the legality of your being here is questionable, and you still find a place to live? Mm-hmm. Interesting. So how can we say it's a housing problem? Yeah, that was interesting.
But how does that turn you into a racist? I mean, have an immigration.
Yeah. And let's be clear, my grandparents were fleeing the genocide in the Ukraine. That's why they came here. That's why there's the exodus. Yeah, I'm an immigrant family.
Yeah.
So anyway, Anthony Brown is saying you are Susan. You seem to want to put a boot in someone's ass today.
I am lit today. I am lit, and I'm so pissed you talked to the Times. I want them to just go the fuck away.
Well, that'll be the end of it.
They can say whatever they want.
That'll be the end of it. Yeah, they can.
No, it won't be the end of it. Listen, that woman only wants you to comment because she feels guilty. Yeah. She got what she wanted. She got you off the committee, and, because you talked to the Trump administration once or something,
oh, really?
About the homeless.
Because they gave a talk at the White House.
Yes.
And by the way, we've been at 3 White Houses: Obama, Trump, and Bush.
Yeah. Oh my God!
I would go to I would go to any White House and give a talk.
I hope Biden calls. God.
Oh my God! It'd be great.
Why do we care?
I'd be happily there for him.
You've been trying to help the homeless. It has nothing to do with your bipartisanship.
I am independent. I have no partisan feelings. Anyway, so
I'm so tired of this.
Yeah.
I'm so not political. I just want these people to shut up.
Yeah. And
Catherine's, a Republican, so anything she says is going to get beat down. I thought she did a really good job during this whole crisis.
Yeah.
So.
Well, she's trying to turn it into something where she can push some initiatives that really will help the homeless, which I'm all about. And if I'm a distraction, then move on. That's
yeah, you know what? You're too big for that committee. We got to go somewhere else. Goodbye. I can't. I mean, if these committees are looking at Twitter for advice, they have a problem. They need to start a new committee. If they're seeing stuff in the news that was written in a rag in England, and they're using that against you, they need to get a freaking life.
Kelly Gallagher just said something very funny. Drew's going to be on Teen Mom Reunion tonight, so you guys better watch because it looks really good.
Thank you.
That's funny. Kelly, that's funny. I will preview for you that some shit does go down.
Is it tonight?
Yeah, some shit goes down.
Probably should promote that. I'll get everybody's sniffers off the homeless situation.
Yeah.
I might as well just I used to get laid into in our emails from Teen Mom people.
Yeah.
And what a bad job you did there. So that actually slowed down.
You got used to that.
I'm used to it. I've seen it a million times, but I don't like it when people call people that are on our show very reputable people homeless haters or racist or what, you know what I mean? It's like, this is a person that can't control themselves, and they're just advising. This guy was interviewed by the LA Times,
I know,
too.
Which is so ridiculous.
And
he's not even in Los Angeles. He's in New York.
He's like, he's got psychiatric problems,
right.
too. And I'm like, yeah, this is your expert? Okay, great. You go with that. You just go with that. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the real world now, back in,
Well, anyway, I'm hungry. What'd you order for dinner?
I haven't ordered anything.
All right, let's take care of that. That's much more. Yeah, Tom Cigar says you're going to flip the desk over. I'm afraid that's about to happen.
I know. I just have had it with these people.
Yeah. Feel better though? You feel better talking about it, getting a support from this crowd?
No, I don't feel better because the homeless are screwed. They're screwed.
I know.
It's not all about me. I will be fine. It's the homeless people that are going to suffer from this.
Yeah.
And I am not a homeless hater. I feel really sad for them. These are human beings that have horrible psychiatric problems, and they need help.
Yep. But in California, we do not take care of sick people if the illness occurs above the neck. If it occurs up here, we're not allowed to treat it. So there you go. All right, let's kind of wrap this thing up, Susan. Let me get back facing forward.
Okay. You can look at this.
I can look at this camera? All right, excellent.
Give everybody, blow everybody kisses.
Thank you for being here today. We thank Dr. Have I forgotten her name?
Kaufman.
For coming in and swinging by. Again, it's iocdf.org if you're interested in some of the obsessive compulsive resources that are out there. Really good.
Get your Halodyne and your Hydrolite and your seed and get a blue mic and you can start your own podcast.
Yeah. Oh, here's some Greek. Let's see if I can read that. Binau ti ine kalo va pote.
Oh, you're reading Greek?
So, yes. So it is we could. You have very
nice face.
I don't know what the pate is there.
Big head.
Pote, not pote. So hang on.
You have a very big head.
So you have much to do or to eat. What is it? Help me, Squirmy. I'm just learning it. Pinao.
Okay.
Hang on. Pinao, tiine, kalo na pate. Pate is like must or something. To must have a lot to
This
do.
is scintillating
Oh, you must have
stuff.
a lot to do. Right? Squirmy, am I getting that? Come on, this is very important for me.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
Let's see if he... Maybe... what's his name? Who just did that? Squirmy, maybe you can coach me up. Maybe we can get some tutoring going here. Because I'm... Somebody else is... Eat a lot. Yeah, you have to go eat a lot. That's what it is. You're right.
Oh, here it is.
I'm hungry. What's good to eat? Okay, there you go. What's the pinao? Is pinao I'm hungry? See, I'm not good at reading or writing. Pate, eat, LOL. Okay. All right. Well, good. I'm getting there. I'm getting slowly there. Thank you for the little Greek lesson.
I know. It's making me hungry.
We're going to go take care of this. And what do we got coming up this week, Susan?
Oh, we have Ken Linder.
Ken Linder, who's written a book about how to really supercharge your life and your career.
How to get your career back.
Yeah, good.
After Mark Horvath shits on you. Oh, God. Yeah, hopefully he'll have some advice. And then I was thinking about getting that fitness guy that we met at.
No. That other doctor I recommended to you, the guy with the accent, that our buddy from...
okay, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, he's going to be
I don't have him yet, so don't get people's hopes up.
Okay, it'll be interesting. Anthony Brown says, I want to read this. It's pretty funny. I'm confused. What's Greek? So we're going to Greece, and so I'm learning Greek. And my brain has been foggy because of COVID, and learning a new language, a difficult new language, has really helped me. And I'm getting to the point where I understand the grammar and I have some vocabulary, but I can't read it and I can't hear it very well. So, let's
focus on that.
All right, so I'm going to go do my Greek lessons.
That'll be your new job.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow about 3 o'clock, Susan. Is that correct?
Yeah, around 3.
A fatty sto diakofritis. A fatty sto. Sas a fatty sto, mate.
Okay, God bless you guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yassas. Bye.
Yassas.
This pandemic began, we were not sure how it spread. Everyone began wearing masks and using hand sanitizers. Great ways to slow the spread, but a lot of people still get sick. I can personally attest to that. We now know that COVID-19 spreads via aerosols and droplets from the nose and mouth, and I've been thinking about this for a while. Why aren't we also sanitizing the nose and mouth, killing the virus directly at the place where it spreads? Why weren't more doctors thinking about this? Well, some doctors have done the research. Wish I discovered it sooner. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Halodyne. It's an FDA-registered antiseptic for the nose and mouth that's proven to eliminate 99.99% of the virus that causes COVID-19 in just 15 seconds. That's right. It's created by a team of clinicians with decades of experience in antiviral treatments, initially created to protect healthcare workers. These are smart scientists, and it's a great product that also eliminates many other viruses and infecting particles. I'm using both their nasal antiseptic swab and their oral spray to help protect those around me, and you should be too. For others and for yourself. Whether you're hopping on a 3-hour flight, always use it there, visiting grandparents, or attending a meeting that you can't miss, Halodyne's family of oral and nasal antiseptics give you the safe, easy, on-the-go antiviral protection for up to 4 hours. I encourage you to try Halodyne at halodyne.com today. My listeners get 10% off with the discount code Dr. Drew. That is HALODINE.com, discount code DRDREW. So obvious. It just makes sense. Stop the virus before it spreads and gets in your body with Halodyne. I've struggled with various digestive issues over the years, so gut health is extremely important to me. Now, while gut health awareness has increased, it has led to a wellness trend that inspired a host of kind of questionable marketing claims and even false claims. You've seen the word probiotic attached to all kinds of supplements, drinks, and more, and they may claim to deliver the healthy microorganisms our guts need for proper function, but all too often the promises are really too good to be true. Thankfully, I became aware of a company called Seed and their flagship product, the Daily Symbiotic. That's right. Seed's Daily Symbiotic offers 24 clinically researched strains of microorganisms in a single dose. These strains support gut, skin, and heart health and promotes regularity, sometimes within as little as 24 to 48 hours. To me, what really sets Seed's Daily Symbiotic apart is its delivery system. This is my supply. While some products may offer the right strains, they are fragile and they rarely survive the trip through your gut. Seed uses a capsule-in-capsule design that helps ensure that 100% of the probiotics reach your colon where they matter most. Now, I've been taking Seed's Daily Symbiotic, and I encourage you to check out their story and the science behind what they do. To try it for yourself, just go to seed.com/Dr. Drew. Use code Dr. Drew for 20% off your first month of Daily Symbiotic. That is seed.com/Dr. Drew. Use code DRDREW, Dr. Drew.